Here we have example number 3 for this section, which says which property is illustrated in each of the following equations. So if you'll remember, we had several different properties. We had the multiplication was closed. We also had the commutative, the associative properties. We had the distributive property or the distribution property of multiplication over addition. And then we had the identity property that talked about anything being multiplied by 1, which is the multiplicative identity. Anything multiplied by 1 is itself, so that's the identity property. And then we had multiplication by 0. So we had those 6 or so properties. So that's what they're asking us about in this section. They're wanting us to look at each one of these and describe or just tell which property is being used in order to say that the left side is equal to the right side. So go ahead and try these and see if you can get them, and then we'll try to figure it out together. All right, so push pause now. Okay, so hopefully you had just a minute and you went through each one of these, I'm hoping, on your own and see where you're at and see how much of this you remember and understand. I think this is really important for you to do this because it lets you know what you understand right now and what you need to focus on trying to learn. So, take those opportunities to actually pause and see how much you know. Okay, so let's get back to this. This one says which property is illustrated in each of the following equations. So we have part A that says 6 and then parentheses 5 times 4 equals and then parentheses 6 times 5 and then times 4. So which one of the properties did you choose for this one? You should have chose the associative property of multiplication. I'm just going to put associative property for time reasons. These are in the exact same order. Our order is not changing. We are just reassociating what's being multiplied first using those parentheses. So we're reassociating. We're not commuting back and forth. We're just reassociating. Okay, what about the next one? The next one looked very similar, so it might have, well, these first 3 actually look very similar, so you might have looked at them and went, this might be a trick. Okay, so in this one we have 6 and then parenthesis 5 times 4 equals 6 and then parenthesis 4 times 5. So did you say that this was the commutative property? Because it is. Why is this one commutative instead of associative? We're not associating different items, are we? We are literally switching the places of the 4 and the 5. That's like a commute back and forth to work. You're 5 times 4 and 4 times 5. Otherwise, the 6 is still being multiplied to those same things. So that's the commutative property of multiplication. Now for our next one, we have 6 times 5 times 4 equals 5 times 4 times 6. So this one again is the commutative property. Hope you got those 3, because if you did, those were a little tricky, so very good for you. Here we are actually changing the order in which those things are. The 5 and the 4 are not changing order or places, but instead of being multiplied on the right to the 6, it's being multiplied on the left to the 6 and on the other side of the equal sign. So those are actually switching places, making that the commutative property. Then our part D here says 1 times, and then in parentheses 5 times 4 is equal to 5 times 4. Well, we know 1 times anything is itself. So 1 is the multiplicative identity, so this would be the identity property of multiplication. but I'm just going to put identity property for time's sake. Okay, part E says 3 plus 4 in parentheses times 0 equals 0. So anything times 0 is itself, and that is called the multiplication property of 0. So very interesting. All right, then our last one here. We have in parentheses 3 plus 4, and then times in parentheses 5 plus 6 equals parentheses 3 plus 4 times 5 plus in parentheses 3 plus 4 times 6. So this one might have been a little bit different, but can you see that what they're doing is they're just multiplying, oops, let me do this a little differently, the 5 times this parenthesis and then the 6 times that parenthesis. They've just put it on the back side instead of the front side. So this is actually an example of the distributive property. Okay, hope you got all those.